Hello, fellow citizens. Hello, Liberians. My name is L.Varnie B. Mamey, and I am a human rights activist. I'm the former chief investigator of the Independent National Commission on Human Rights of the Republic of Liberia. I am a former student leader of the University of Liberia, and I am a certified human rights consultant in the United States of America. And I come with a wealth of experience necessary to discuss issues of national concern in the Republic of Liberia, specifically regarding our legislative crisis. So, fellow citizens, without delaying or wasting your time, I would like to give you a background of the legislative crisis. This crisis began when President Joseph Numa Boakai, few months ago, along with Fonati Koffa, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, went to Rome to visit the Pope. On this religious visit, unfortunately, what our country noticed was a coup d'etat intended to remove a legitimate speaker in his absence. This plot, which was orchestrated, in my opinion, by individuals wanting to grab power or greedy for power, individuals wanting to control the national budget, individuals trying to have a power play for 2029 election and dismantle all other opposition, were the ones behind this plot. And I can also throw the blame on the executive branch of government, headed by the president. Why? Because he has the motive and he has the means. How do I know? Because after the election of Joseph Boakai, there was an election for speaker. And in this election, Fonati Koffa and Richard Kuhn contested for the speakership. And Richard Kuhn, as a Unity Party lawmaker, was defeated. Fast forward, I know that the executive branch of government was never happy because they know they don't control the budget. And for them to be able to carry out their agenda, they would prefer, or they would like, for the speaker to come from the Unity Party. So all along there was this scheme, there was this plan, there was this plot being orchestrated to remove the speaker. Not only to remove the speaker legitimately, but through any means necessary, including political means, including bribing lawmakers. There were allegations of bribery of $15,000 to each lawmaker to remove the legitimate speaker. That is yet to be justified. That is yet to be proven. But as far as we are concerned, those are allegations. They need to be investigated, and then we'll know exactly why or who did the bribery, or whatever it was involved in the bribery allegation. We'll be able to find the truth. But before then, we can only speculate, and we can only have circumstantial evidence to prove that the executive was behind it. Now, what we are saying here today is this particular removal of the speaker was fueled by three things: greed for power, control of the national budget for corrupt purposes, and also it's a political power play for 2029 election. Now, greed for power, yes, because these guys want to control both the executive branch of government, the legislative branch of government, if possible, the Supreme Court of the Republic of Liberia. Second thing is, they want to control the national budget. Why? Because they got some hidden transactions in the national budget. They got some yellow machines that they want to pay for. They got a lot of things that they want to pay for through the national budget. They have made it an assignment to remove the speaker, because it is only the speaker that stands in the way of them accomplishing whatever they have put in the national budget. some of these money that they are putting in the national budget is not going to benefit the Liberian people. It's not going to benefit their political agenda. As we have seen for the last 9 to 10 months or 11 months, the rescue mission has failed the Liberian people. As we predicted, because we knew that these people were in power for 12 consecutive years, and we know what kind of agenda they presented to us. Out of 60 some more concessions, everything was never in the interest of the Liberian people. 90% or 95% of their concessions in the 12 years that the United Party led our country, most of those concessions were not in the interest of the Liberian people. Other reports show that most of the money that they collected from on behalf of the Liberian people did not come to benefit the Liberian people. And so these guys came back to power. After the failure or the dismal performance of the CDC government, and I can state it as a fact that the CDC performance was dismal, but what we are experiencing under the United Party is even worse. By comparison, it is far worse. So they are all not to be given any kind of relevance. Both the United Party and the CDC, they have failed us. But the failure of the United Party is 2 times more than the failure of the CDC. I can state that for a fact. And that's a debate for another day. But we have been failed by the Supreme Court of the Republic of Liberia. We have been failed, let down by the legislature of the Republic of Liberia. We have been let down by the executive branch of government. So it's a complete failure of the 3 branches of government of the Republic of Liberia. The legislature, that happens to be, quote unquote, the first branch of government, is in complete confusion, and they are divided on the basis of the removal of the speaker. But what I would say here is that for you to remove the speaker, the Supreme Court has said, and it has ruled, that you must follow Article 49 of the Constitution that requires 49 members of the legislature to remove the speaker by a resolution and by vote taking. There are procedures laid down, there are steps laid down that are constitutional that you must follow. And we expect that those who took oath to protect and defend our Constitution are under obligation to ensure that these rules and laws are followed in terms of removing the speaker. These very people went and sat down and voted for Fonati Koffa as speaker. Several months down the line, they come back to say they want to remove the speaker. That's their right. It is their right. And I do not care whatsoever who is speaker. All I care about is whenever they decide to make a speaker or elect a speaker, it should be done constitutionally. Equally so, if they decide to remove that speaker, it should also be done constitutionally. If you guys went and sat down in a plenary under a presiding and went through the steps necessary, required by the Constitution to elect a speaker, if you decide to remove that speaker, go step by step by the Constitution and remove that speaker. Anything to the contrary is unconstitutional. We will not accept it as Liberian people. We will fight it with every fiber of our being. And so that's the reason why I said the legislature has failed us. Equally so, the executive branch, headed by Joseph Boakai, have failed us. The executive branch, headed by Joseph Boakai, seemed to be a laissez-faire kind of leadership. Joseph Boakai, who we expected as an experienced leader, quote unquote, as an elder in the house, as one of those who have served government for the longest in our republic, is sitting there and allowing our country to ruin, to go down the dangerous path of constitutional violation that led us to 14 years of civil war. And he did nothing. He's doing nothing. In fact, he's even a party to the conflict, throwing the stones and hiding his hands. I don't know what long-hidden hands are behind his grand deception. But as far as we are concerned, the president is not innocent. The president has a role to play, because we know from the beginning he took the speaker to room when this plot was being orchestrated. And so we have been failed and let down by our executive branch. And even the Supreme Court, when this matter went to the Supreme Court for adjudication, we expected the Supreme Court to come up with a ruling that would have been crystal clear, emphatically clear, abundantly clear. Who is doing what wrong? If you said that sittings were ultra vires, make it clear as to which sitting, who were in the sitting, what date, what place made it to be ultra vires. But if you just made it vague, people will have their own interpretations for their own benefit. And that's what we saw happening. We saw Oxford Twere, who happens to be a member of the executive branch, the justice minister, coming to make his own opinion on the Supreme Court ruling. What do you expect Oxford Twere to say? This is a guy who was appointed by the president and worked at the will and pleasure of the president. He's not neutral. His opinion is not neutral. For the fact that he sat down there after the Supreme Court ruled that the members of the legislature should return to status quo ante, he did not come up with any kind of an opinion as to what they should do or what they should do right. And he only for the last minute, when he saw it convenient for the benefit of the executive branch to come and make any opinion, it's not something that we should even listen to. Because as far as I'm concerned, he is not a neutral person in this conflict. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have been let down by our three branches of government, and it is a failure of our government. The three branches, systematic failure, structural failure of our three branches of government. And so this crisis has to be resolved. Those people, whether it is the police, whether it is lawmakers that are beating on journalists, I'm calling on them to refrain from beating on journalists, insulting journalists, because the journalists are only there to do their job. It is through the journalists that the Liberian people know what is happening at the legislature. It is for their own benefit. Because when the journalists are there, they hold the camera, they interview the lawmakers, they know what exactly is happening. We know what exactly is happening. So they should take their hands off journalists. It is wrong. It is unacceptable. It is ridiculous. It is preposterous for any lawmaker or any police officer to beat on journalists. We condemn it. It was wrong before. It is wrong now. It will forever be wrong. And so finally, I want to conclude by saying this crisis can be resolved by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court must muster the courage to ensure that whatever interpretation or whatever ruling that they come up with should be crystal clear. Thank God, a bill of information has been filed with the Supreme Court to be crystal clear about their ruling. This bill of information should not come out with a ruling or an explanation that will be vague. We don't want any vague explanation. We want a clear-cut, dry explanation and clarification from the Supreme Court that will not lead to another crisis or misunderstanding or confusion. We have suffered too long. Our country deserves better. We want the Supreme Court to come up with clear-cut explanation and clarification about their ruling so that we can be able to make progress. And whatever the Supreme Court rules, we are asking all lawmakers who are under oath to defend and protect the Constitution to follow suit. Any attempt for any group of lawmakers to violate our Constitution or to be in violation of the Supreme Court rulings, we the Liberian people will step in. And I'll be one of those to support the call for actions of the citizens against the constitutional violation. We are going to be watching. The world is watching. Let it be made clear that any attempt to violate our Constitution, the citizens will be involved. We will step in. We will provide direction for our country. No more will we sit for people to violate our Constitution and take us to the dark days that made our generation, members of our generation, to become zogos. Members of our generation to continue to languish in poverty. Members of our generation to continue to struggle for bread. while we are continuing to be people, our country is being pillaged. The resources have been siphoned for nail. And while our people languish in poverty, and people continue to abuse, misuse, and violate our constitution, we will never sit back and allow this to happen. We will step in that banquet. We will turn the tables. We will ensure that the laws are respected. We will ensure that our country is developed. Beginning with the rule of law. We're beginning with the respect for the rule of law. We're beginning with the respect for the Constitution. Beginning with the respect for the Supreme Court's ruling. Any other thing contrary to respect for the rule of law is null and void, and we will resist it with every fiber of our being. And so, fellow citizens, we wait to listen, to hear from the Supreme Court regarding the Bill of Information, and we ask you to remain calm and remain peaceful and wait for the ruling, and we will be listening, we will be watching. So let's stay tuned. Liberia deserves better. The world is watching. We are going to be speaking after the Supreme Court ruling, and we'd like to say thank you. May God bless you, and may God bless Liberia.